Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most fabulous dog training podcast you've ever heard in your life. So, how are we all doing? How are the dogs doing? Have you had a June heat wave? And if so, are we all okay? We have had some seriously hot weather here in the UK this month, and I will never understand my dogs who are obviously permanently strolling around in a pair of fur coats that Pat Butcher would be impressed by, especially the poodle. Although, to be fair, kudos to my groomer. He does give Albie a really lovely, really short coat in the summer. But because they both insist on congregating in the hottest room of this house, the conservatory, no matter what the bloody temperature is, like they actually want to cook. I have to close that room down entirely. And it's ridiculous because we have an old Victorian house, right? And this is going to make me sound crazy. I'm pretty sure it's haunted because the front room is actually always cold, or at the very least, even in the height of summer, it's like perfectly cool in there. That's the only room. But will they take refuge in there? Will they heck? It's like police enforced cooling protocols only. They are completely bonkers, honestly. Anyway, I didn't come here to talk about the weather today, did I? Even though I am British, and obviously I did clearly feel compelled to mention it at the top of this episode. But I've got it out of my system now. So I want to talk about something this week that I think everyone, every dog owner, wants to know more about. I hope this is the case anyway, but I have noticed lately, for like the past, I don't know, 18 months or so, on social media, that when other dog trainers raise this topic, there is always, and it's getting raised more and more, there is always a mad influx of questions and comments that come in from owners saying, "Oh, can you tell me this for my dog breed? Tell me how this works for my breed." And then they always basically, they get ignored, or they just get some like really surface level answer, or they get told they have to buy into some extortionately priced membership or program or whatever, and then all will be magically revealed. So I thought, let's do it on today's podcast. Let's dive into the latest, most trendy thing for dog trainers to discuss, apparently, and that is breed specific enrichment or breed specific outlets. Because unless you've been living in a cave for the last 5 years, you'll probably have noticed that there has been a massive shift in emphasis from pushing the idea of strict obedience and control and management towards actually the idea that our dogs have behaviour struggles because they are not living the lives they are supposed to live. We are not providing them with the species and breed-specific outlets and fulfillment that they crave, which leads to frustration, which leads to behaviour leaks that, to us as humans, are undesirable. You know, things like the hyper-vigilant reactive border collies, or the super noisy Dachshunds who are kicking off at everything, or the mouthy destructive retrievers, or whatever it is. Now, for the working breeds, I think it's probably a lot easier for owners to work out or research for themselves some appropriate outlets and activities for their dogs. But for other breeds, it's maybe not so obvious, and there's less guidance out there generally. So today, I'm going to help you out. Now, obviously, there are hundreds of dog breeds, and we would be here forever if I talked about them all. But I'm going to pick some of my faves. We're going to look at the most common pet breeds at the moment, perhaps the lesser understood breeds. And I'm going to give you my advice on how you can up the breed-specific outlets for each of these dogs to help lessen their frustration, improve their behavior, and just generally help them live their very best lives. So let's start with a bit of science. Why does breed-specific enrichment even matter? What's the actual basis for it? Well, every breed of dog, or more accurately, every type of dog, was developed with a purpose in mind. Sometimes that purpose was highly specific, like herding sheep in tight quarters. And sometimes it was a lot broader, like general companionship. But almost every breed group was selected for certain traits, whether that is stamina, reactivity, noise sensitivity, bite strength, scenting ability, visual acuity, environmental awareness, prey drive, persistence, frustration tolerance, or even lack thereof, and so on, right? I could go on. So that means that the behaviors your dog finds naturally reinforcing, i.e., the stuff they actually enjoy doing, the stuff that is self-rewarding, it compulsive even, they are largely influenced by their genetics. That's a fact, right? For example, chasing a ball, playing fetch is fun for a lot of dogs. It's probably fun for most dogs, but for a border collie, the specific act of staring it down, stalking it, waiting, that's the juicy bit of the game for the border collie. That's the most powerful part of their predatory sequence. And it's a sequence pattern that has been deliberately exaggerated in that breed through selective breeding to make them exceptional herders. And then when we ask dogs to live in modern homes without outlets for these ingrained, inherited behaviors, we create friction. And that friction can manifest as problem behaviors, frustration, reactivity, hypervigilance, destructiveness, barking, anxiety, or most commonly just like a general sense of unease. A dog who is never quite settled, a dog who is always on, if you know what I mean by that. And if you have a dog like this, I'm sure you know exactly what I mean by that. Breed specific enrichment is about giving the dog something they don't just tolerate or even something that is a nice to have, but actually delivering something they deeply, instinctively love, something that specifically scratches the itch that they were born with. So now let's crack on with it and dive into some of the breeds I'm going to explore in this episode. And I really hope that lots of you will be able to take away some really useful, actionable tips from this, or at the very least, you will have a really good starting point to know exactly the types of activities and outlets that you can go and do your own research and explore in a bit more detail, knowing you're not just diving in completely blind. Okay, so let's start with the Old Faithful, which is always up there at the top of the family dog recommendations list. I also have one, so maybe I am biased, but it's the good old Labrador Retriever. Now, Labradors are still one of the most popular breeds in the UK, and they are often seen or certainly portrayed or, marketed as easy family dogs. But actually, they were bred to be high energy working gun dogs, which means they love the following things. Number one, retrieving. Obviously, no brainer. We all knew this, didn't we? But what perhaps you didn't know is that a Labrador's brain really gets itched by retrieves with rules because they weren't just bred to chase a ball. They were developed to work closely with a human handler, like hold a precise stay in high arousal, listen for cues, and retrieve game really carefully and really deliberately, and often through water or rough terrain, and return it to that handler without damaging it. That is not just a run and grab task. That is a complex sequence that requires impulse control, focus, and a deep level of engagement with you as their owner. So when we talk about ditching your bog standard game of fetch and replacing it with structured fetch, which is really going to scratch that itch for our Labradors, I mean, firstly, using a start button. So instead of just lobbing the ball while your dog's revving up, teach them to ask for the game to begin. And that might look like just a sit or eye contact or a chin rest before the throw. This builds patience, it gives them agency, and it helps regulate arousal before the excitement begins. And it is mental work. So you are not just tiring out their legs, you are working their brains too. Okay, second, set delivery expectations. So rather than just letting them drop the ball halfway back, or they run off with it and play keep away for a bit and do what they like and then they bring it back, train a reliable retrieve directly to hand or directly into a tub. This turns the game into a full sequence. Go out, get the item, bring it all the way back, and hand it over nicely. That part of the task is just as reinforcing when you build value into it. And third, add hunting elements. So instead of always throwing the toy out into the open, try hiding it in long grass. Bury it under some leaves or behind objects. Let your dog use their nose to locate the item, just like they would in a real life gun dog scenario. I mean, look, you can even go and investigate proper gun dog training, get some classes. You can cue them to search and then let them problem solve. It's mentally taxing in the best possible way and taps into their deep love for purposeful scenting and retrieval. Because ultimately, this kind of enrichment doesn't just tire them out, it lights up the parts of the brain that were designed to work. It brings out their natural intelligence and it builds a deeper connection between you and your dog, because now you're not just their toy throwing human, like you could just get a ball launcher for that. You're their teammate on the job. Other things to consider for Labradors are mouthing and carrying. So give them soft toys, dumbbells, or safely chewable items to parade around. Now, the act of parading itself is very often not mentioned as part of the predatory motor sequence that all dogs have. But if you listen to Jo Rosie Haffenden talk about this, she mentions it quite a lot and thinks that it is an innate part of that sequence for all dogs. So not only do they like to, scent and stalk and chase and grab and shake and kill, they actually then they are fulfilled by the act of simply parading a kill in their mouth. Because when she talks about it being kind of like a display, like if you are holding a large item of prey in your mouth and you're going to walk around and you're going to show everyone, you're saying like, look how good a hunter I am, or look how good a scavenger I am. It's really useful for attracting a mate or showing your value in a pack socially, as an example. So this act of parading, and you might find this if you own a Labrador as well, I think that this is something that is inherently bred into Labradors. It's why they enjoy the carrying and the fetching. You might find that actually there's a little bit of conflict in Labradors because they love to parade so much. Now, they love the chase, but they really love the parade too. So when they bring the ball back to you, they're kind of like, right, okay, I'm bringing the ball back to you now. Oh, but I don't want to let go of it. But I do really want you to throw it. But I also can't let go of it. But I really want you to pick it up and throw it. But I don't want to give it to you at the same time. And it's a really interesting. And I think it's a prime example of how valuable that act of parading is as well, and how just innately fulfilling it is to that breed of dog. So like I say, buying them soft toys and dumbbells and things that they can literally just carry. And sometimes if you have a reactive dog, this can be a really useful way of just making them feel a little bit more confident and more calm on a walk, where they are literally kind of carrying an emotional support toy. They're just walking along, but they're carrying a dumbbell. And just the act of holding that dumbbell in their mouth and carrying it provides something that calms and soothes and regulates, because they've just been bred for that to feel so reinforcing. So that's definitely something to consider too. Now, another obvious one for Labradors is swimming. If it's safe and practical, water retrieves are like Labrador heaven. Every Labrador I've ever known has absolutely just been drawn to water, absolutely loves it, apart from one Labrador. I did once work with one Labrador who was scared of water. It was really strange. And it was kind of funny because his owners were actually really into rowing, and they did a lot of like sports at the lake, and they brought their Labrador puppy because, they wanted a dog that would be really confident by the water and come in the water with them. And he was actually terrified of water. So there are always exceptions, but generally, water is another great one for Labradors. And a basic, but a goodie, I will always maintain, is your clicker training, because it is a universal truth that Labradors love food and that Labradors love working with you. So teach chains of behaviors that keep their brains engaged. If you're interested in learning more about patterning tricks together and teaching this kind of like juicy brain stuff, please check out my 21 days of engagement course on the website listendogtraining.com. It is packed with really cool stuff like this to really get their brains working, really get your partnership growing, which for working breeds that are designed to work alongside us and in harmony with us, is a fantastic way to fulfill those breed needs. Because here's the key, right? A bored Labrador is often destructive, mouthy, hyperactive. But when you give them jobs that simulate their historic role, that is when they become the calm, happy, lovely family dog that you were promised. Okay, on to breed number 2, the beautiful Border Collie. The Border Collie. So much brain, and very often so very little chill, because these dogs were bred to work all day on their own with minimal supervision, managing really complex tasks like balancing pressure on a flock of sheep. They are hyper responsive, hypersensitive, and hyper aware of environmental detail. So, what do they need? Here are some ideas. Number 1, stalking, chasing, stopping, and balancing. Now, I very much doubt you own a flock of sheep, but you can simulate this with toys or flirt poles in structured ways. Have a look at YouTube. There are loads of really cool tutorials for collie-specific games like this. There's no point in me trying to describe them to you on a podcast, but if you get onto YouTube and Google, there are some specifically designed games and activities and training tasks for collies that would absolutely scratch that itch without you needing to buy any sheep whatsoever. Okay, number 2 for Border Collies, moving targets. Again, like I've said, look into these herding specific dog activities like tribal herding balls and sheep balls. You can Google sheep balls. Honestly, it's not what you think. It's fine. Yeah, that's a great one. Okay, number 3, patterned behaviors, because collies thrive on repetition and rituals. So teach really structured obedience drills or agility sequences, or get yourself into freestyle and do some routines. That's perfect for a Border Collie brain. Now, number 4 is impulse control games, because these dogs often need help learning when not to act. Now, this is slightly contradictory because it's not necessarily an itch scratcher for a Border Collie, but it is a really valuable investment of your time if you own this breed. Otherwise, if you do have a Border Collie that is perhaps not feeling fully fulfilled, you end up with these leaky behaviors like Border Collies that are like really reactive to cars or cyclists or children or whatever, because they're trying to scratch that itch themselves and they're hyper reactive to the movement of these things. And they are so compulsively driven to try to control that movement, if that makes sense. But really, the most important thing to remember with collies is don't just run them. A tired collie, like a physically exhausted collie with an unfulfilled brain, is definitely still a problem waiting to happen. Okay, breed number 3, the Dachshund. Oh my lordy lord. Do you know how many Dachshund owners are in my inbox? Truly the problem child of 2025, it would seem, the Dachshund. So, Dachshunds are a small dog, a very cute dog with a really big sassy attitude. These guys were bred to go into badger dens and flush out prey, which means that while they're really cute and on trend, they're actually incredibly like brave and forward and very vocal and very persistent, like a dog with a bone, if you'll excuse the fact that we are literally discussing dogs right now. And they're highly scent driven. If you imagine that this dog's job is to locate and flush out a really naturally aggressive animal, that is the badger, then you'll understand these dogs are not wimps. They are hardwired to charge ahead, to get the damn job done, and to dig in, for want of a better phrase, until that job is done, even in the face of adversity, even if that adversity is coming at them with massive claws. So, what can we give them? Well, we can't really give them badges, but we can give them things like dig boxes. So fill a tray, or you can even like build some kind of sandpit thing in your garden if you have the space. If not, you can fill a tray with safe materials and you can hide treats or toys inside. Even better, best of all, you can take them out into the woods, whack them on a long line so they're really free to go for it, and let them dig, like let them rootle around, let them follow their nose, let them do what they're designed to do. We can give them scent trails. So we can set them up to use their noses by setting up like food trails around the house or the garden, or again, whack a long line on them, head to the woods, let them dictate the route with their noses. Tunnel games are another great one. So you can get lightweight agility tunnels, or just like create your own makeshift sofa tunnels. That kind of thing works great too. And also problem solving games. So Daxies are thinkers, like they have brains. They are designed to problem solve independently, like in contradiction to your Labrador, who is designed to be told what to do and to do those things. Daxies are designed to just be sent out to do a job and then to come back when the job is done. So they are problem solvers, they are thinkers, they can get into everything. So utilize that brain, work that brain. The only thing worth remembering with all of this physical stuff is they can be prone to back issues. So you need to make sure everything is very physically appropriate for your Dachshund, and keep everything safe. But they certainly need more than a lap and a cushion. So give them that challenge and they will thrive. Right, breed number 4. I'm going to be controversial with breed number 4 because it's the Cockapoo. And before you come at me, yes, it's a hybrid. Yes, I am fully aware that the Cockapoo is not a breed of dog, but Cockapoos are so common right now. So I think they absolutely deserve a mention because they are in so many people's homes. And pre-lockdown, actually, this was the problem dog of the era because I think people had no idea what owning a Cockapoo actually meant. So most Cockapoos are a cross between a working type Cocker Spaniel and a miniature poodle, which means you get this energetic, intelligent, but often emotional dog with the curly poodle coat. So as far as enrichment ideas go for this dog, scent games are a really great place to start because both parent breeds love sniffing. Trick training is another great outlet because these dogs are so trainable and absolutely love learning and coordinated working with you. Agility style movement, even just homemade obstacles in the garden. You can buy your stuff online. You can go and join an agility club or class. Again, fantastic idea for this breed. And it's worth mentioning for these guys, emotional regulation exercises, things like mat training, settle games, shaping calmness. I think the biggest mistake with Cockapoos is underestimating their need for structure and engagement just because they're cute and fluffy. I'll say this about a lot of poodle crossbreeds. Poodles are one of the most intelligent, athletic, and emotionally complex breeds in the dog world. And yet they are so often treated like ornamental lapdogs, which is a complete mismatch for who they actually are. So they were originally bred as water retrievers, right? Poodles were designed to be highly responsive, highly biddable, really clever, and really physically capable, especially in challenging, wet or cold conditions. That trademark poodle coat that we all know and love because it doesn't make us sneeze, that is not just for show. That's not just for our convenience in our homes so that we don't have to hoover up all the dog hair. It was originally designed to protect their joints and their internal organs whilst they were swimming through icy water to retrieve fallen game. These guys are serious grafters, and modern poodles, whether that is standard, miniature, or toy, have not lost those working instincts at all. In fact, what makes them such brilliant competitors in stuff like obedience and agility and scent work and heel work to music and freestyle, which if you follow me at all, you'll know I absolutely love. That is exactly what can make them really challenging pets when their needs are not properly met, because poodles need their brains to be respected, they need their bodies to be used, and they need their emotions to be understood, especially when they're often crossed with like some clingy companion breeds like Cavaliers or Bichons or whatever. It can be so common to see things like separation anxiety become a real issue because you've got this frustrated, underworked brain that is designed to be attached to their human 24/7, then being left home alone with nothing to do. That is a nightmare situation for so many of them. So if you have anything crossed with a poodle, please be aware of the high caliber brain that is very likely inside your dog and give them stuff to do. Complex training chains and thinking tasks are great things to explore with your poodle. These dogs honestly thrive when asked to solve puzzles and link behaviors together. Try shaping like a multi-step trick or teach a complex freestyle sequence that makes them think, what comes next? Their working memory and pattern recognition are incredibly strong, and they're really great at movement with precision too, because they are just so smart. I have a poodle and he absolutely excels learning heel work routines, freestyle routines, and trick training. He's much less clumsy than my Labrador, who is also a highly intelligent breed, right? But he's much less clumsy than she was when she was young, because there is so much poise and finesse to work with a poodle. Definitely utilize it if you can. Ultimately, an understimulated poodle doesn't just get bored. They often get anxious, they get hypervigilant, they can become controlling, sometimes even neurotic. The neurotic poodle is very much a real thing. So if you are living with a poodle or a poodle mix, like a cockapoo or a labradoodle or a cavapoo or whatever, ask yourself, am I meeting their need for mental stimulation? Am I offering movement that is precise, not just wild zoomies or endless fetch? Am I training with the kind of layered clarity that makes them feel successful? Because when a poodle is fulfilled, like really fulfilled, they are absolutely unbeatable. They become elegant, focused, hilarious. The personalities are amazing and deeply connected companions. And if you've got a poodle who is currently like bouncing off the walls or trying to micromanage your entire household, maybe it's time to bring a little structured enrichment back into their world. Okay, up next, the French Bulldog. Now, Frenchies are another wildly popular breed, but they do come with some big limitations. So due to their brachycephalic skulls, which basically means they have much shorter noses, they can't always tolerate long exercise or heat, but that doesn't mean they don't need stimulation. So for your Frenchie, you could consider things like puzzle feeders, because they certainly love food, and short bursts of problem solving. Shaping games are another fun activity where they learn by trial and error to earn rewards. I would recommend short training sessions where you focus more on engagement and connection over precision with Frenchies. And scent exploration is another obvious, easy win with, a little garden safari. You can set it up yourself, or you can hide food around the house. You can play hide and go seek. They are not endurance athletes, that's for sure, but they are so playful and they are really curious and clownish, I think, which is what makes them so popular. And they definitely deserve to have their minds enriched too. Like, they are not just a placid lapdog. Okay, another fabulous breed, which I actually seem to have a lot of in my neighborhood, actually. We see a lot of them around here, is the gorgeous German Shepherd. Now, I always think the German Shepherd is kind of often always thought of as a jack of all trades because you see them in so many roles, don't you? Like, they are police dogs, they can be service dogs, agility dogs, protection dogs. But what makes them great in all these roles is the same thing that can lead to struggles in the average home, the average pet owner home. And that is that they are powerful, intelligent, high drive dogs with complex brains and a really strong work ethic. And enrichment that helps them thrive would include things like scent detection games. So German Shepherds are naturally great at tracking and detection. I think we all know this. So absolutely harness that. Another one to consider is structured bite work or tug is a really great way to safely channel their strong mouths and need for like conflict style play. You could explore properly getting into bite work as a sport if you think that's something you'd both enjoy. Fitness routines and proprioception work to build body awareness and stability is another goodie. Ultimately, think about clear, layered training because these dogs love rules and they thrive with consistency and boundaries, as well as problem solving challenges like shaping a new behavior or learning a multi step task. Basically, don't just run a German Shepherd into the ground because they really do need as much mental exercise as they do physical. Okay, another very popular, very beautiful breed is the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. So bloody full of love and muscle and mischief, these dogs. They are incredibly human oriented. They are bold. They are emotionally driven. And they also have a huge need for physical engagement, and they love to use their mouths and their bodies in really forward, like powerful ways. So if you live with a Staffy or you are considering it, great enrichment options for these guys include things like tug and carry games, because Staffies love to grip and hold and shake and carry. Rough and tumble play is another big one for Staffies, but remember to do this safely and with structure. So teach a few cues that are going to be useful to you in keeping this kind of stuff like safe. Like teach an out cue, teach an off cue, teach a pause cue, whatever. Work with impulse control in arousal before you introduce like really hardcore rough and tumble stuff. But that's something that Staffies really, really enjoy. Weight pulls or drag games are another great way to help your Staffy use those muscles that they have in a safe and structured way. And I'd also just throw in here calmness training and really highlighting the importance of that impulse control work for Staffies because they really can go from 0 to 100, and helping them learn to downshift is massively valuable for everyone. And maybe the biggest wisdom nugget I have for you on Staffies is please never forget how social they are. Connection is literally everything to a Staffy, so give them your time when you can. Invest in that relationship because they will absolutely thrive on it. Okay, so I've explored quite a few of the most common, most popular breeds If I haven't mentioned your dog, I'm so sorry. However, hopefully, this episode has still been really useful in helping to underline the importance of breed specific fulfillment. And I've at least given you some food for thought or some ideas you can go and look into more and, kick off your own research with. And ultimately, if you only take one message away from this podcast episode, let it be this: enrichment isn't just about throwing food in a puzzle toy and hoping for the best. It's about looking at who your dog is and finding ways to honor and celebrate that through what you offer them. It's about moving from managing behavior to understanding behavior, from stifling that innate drive to channeling it, and from seeing frustration as a problem to seeing it as ultimately a signal that something deeper needs your attention. Of course, we all want calmer dogs. We all want easier walks. We want fewer behavioral challenges. I mean, we don't want any behavioral challenges at all, do we? But so often the route to that isn't just hammering the obedience, it's fulfillment as well. Because a dog that has daily outlets for their instincts, who is allowed to do dog things in structured, rewarding, safe ways, that is a dog that is less frustrated, more balanced, more connected, and ultimately more trainable. So I challenge you to have a think this week. What was my dog originally bred for? And how can I let them express even just a little bit of that in our modern life? You don't have to go and change absolutely everything, but a few thoughtful additions to their week, a game, a task, a little training challenge, whatever, that can change everything for them. And you will be so grateful for the behavior changes that follow. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you found today's episode helpful, I would love it if you could share it with a fellow dog lover, leave a review, tag me on the old socials. I'm at Listen Dog Training everywhere, so I can hear what enrichment ideas you're excited to try. And if you have any questions at all about your own dog, if I haven't mentioned their breed, or if I have, but you'd like more clarity on something I said, you can always slide into my DMs and throw a question at me. I'd be absolutely delighted to help you out. Anyway, I'm going to let you crack on with the rest of your day, the rest of your dog walk, and I will see you next week for another fabulous deep dive into all things dog related. Until then, go forth and enrich those dogs.